I am Chester Wilson, owner of Wilson Construction. After 8 years of what I thought was a solid marriage, everything fell apart when I caught my wife, Amanda, cheating with my project manager. The divorce process was brutal enough with her trying to drain our accounts and spreading lies about me. But the real shock came at our final hearing when she walked into the courtroom 7 months pregnant, smiling like she had just won the lottery. She thought her pregnancy would guarantee her a massive payout from me. But when the judge asked one simple question, her entire scheme collapsed. Before I tell you how my ex-wife's pregnancy scheme completely backfired, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever had someone try to manipulate you for money. I met Amanda 10 years ago, at my best friend Dave's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, stunning, in a pale blue dress that matched her eyes. We connected during the reception, dancing until the venue closed. Something about her energy and the way she laughed at my terrible jokes captivated me. She gave me her number, without me even asking, and we had our first date the following weekend. Our relationship moved at lightning speed. Within 6 months, I was down on one knee, in her favorite restaurant, presenting a diamond ring that cost 3 months of my salary. Looking back, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. Amanda often commented on the houses we drove by, pointing out the ones with circular driveways and pool houses. She would flip through luxury magazines, showing me the lifestyle she wanted someday. I took it as ambition, not materialism. At that time, my construction company was just beginning to gain traction in the Denver market. I had a solid crew of 15 employees and was landing bigger contracts each month. The long hours were worth it because I was building something for our future together. Amanda seemed supportive, bringing dinner to my office when I worked late and listening to my business challenges. Our wedding was extravagant by my standards, with 200 guests at a mountain resort. Amanda insisted on a designer dress, premium open bar, and a live band. When the final bill came to nearly $50,000, I took out a loan to cover it. Her dream wedding put me in debt, but seeing her happiness made it seem worthwhile. The first 2 years of marriage were mostly good. I worked 60 to 70-hour weeks, pouring everything into growing the business. Amanda decorated our new house with high-end furniture and threw dinner parties for my potential clients. On the surface, we were the perfect power couple, but cracks were forming beneath the polished exterior. Arguments about money became frequent. Amanda spent as if we were already millionaires, not a growing business owner, with significant overhead and inconsistent cash flow. I would find shopping bags hidden in her closet tags, still attached to clothes, worth hundreds of dollars. When confronted, she would get defensive, accusing me of being controlling, or not understanding that appearances mattered in our social circle. The breaking point came when I discovered 3 credit cards I knew nothing about. She had racked up over $30,000 in debt, making minimum payments from our joint account. When I confronted her, Amanda cried, claimed she had a shopping addiction, and promised to get help. I wanted to believe her, so I consolidated the debt into a business loan and cut up the cards. We tried marriage counseling, but Amanda would charm the therapist during sessions, then dismiss everything discussed on the drive home. "That woman does not understand what it takes to be married to an entrepreneur," she would say. After 6 sessions, she refused to go back. The emotional distance between us grew wider each month. Amanda joined a country club using funds from her personal training business, which I later discovered barely covered half her membership fees. She began spending evenings and weekends with her fitness friends, returning home with wine on her breath and vague explanations of her whereabouts. Despite everything, I remained committed to making our marriage work. When a lucrative contract came up requiring 3 months of work in Phoenix, I turned it down. The project would have put us on solid financial footing, but Amanda insisted my absence would damage our already fragile relationship. Instead, I hired my project manager, Jack, to oversee our local projects while I focused on saving my marriage. For a few weeks, things seemed better. Amanda appeared more engaged, less focused on material things. She suggested budget-friendly date nights and even took an interest in the business finances. I believed we had turned a corner. I was completely wrong. Our 8th anniversary fell on a Tuesday in April. I decided to surprise Amanda by coming home early with her favorite flowers and reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. I quietly entered our house at 3 in the afternoon, hearing music from our bedroom upstairs. What I heard next stopped me. Cold laughter, whispers, the unmistakable sounds of intimacy. I stood frozen at the foot of the stairs, my mind racing with possibilities, all of them devastating. Perhaps I could just leave, pretend I never heard anything, save myself from the visual confirmation of what my ears were telling me. But my feet carried me up those stairs against my will, each step heavier than the last. The bedroom door was partially open. Through the gap I saw them, Amanda and Jack, my project manager, in our bed. The same man I had trusted to run my projects while I tried to save my marriage was helping to destroy it. The flowers fell from my hand petals, scattering across the hardwood floor. They scrambled to cover themselves when they saw me, but the damage was done. The image was burned into my memory permanently. What surprised me most was not Jack's embarrassment, but Amanda's expression. There was no shame, no remorse, only irritation at being caught. "You are supposed to be at the Westfield site until 7, she said, as if I was the one who had done something wrong by disrupting her afternoon. "How long has this been happening?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm despite the hurricane raging inside me. Jack grabbed his clothes and tried to slip past me, but I blocked the doorway. "How long?" I repeated. "Just tell him," Amanda, Jack mumbled. "This is not how I wanted this to happen." Amanda sighed dramatically. "About a year, if you must know. Maybe if you had been home more instead of playing business mogul, you would have noticed sooner." The betrayal was doubled by the realization this was not a one-time mistake, but a calculated, ongoing deception. Jack had sat in business meetings with me, discussed projects, even joined us for dinner at our home, all while secretly sleeping with my wife. I did not say another word. I walked downstairs, grabbed my keys, and left. I spent that night at my brother Paul's house, staring at the ceiling until dawn, replaying 8 years of marriage and wondering how I had been so blind. The next day I fired Jack despite being in the middle of 3 major projects. It cost me financially, but saved what remained of my dignity. He tried to apologize, claiming he had real feelings for Amanda, as if that somehow lessened the betrayal. I told him to collect his things and be out of the office before noon. When I finally returned home 2 days later, Amanda attempted a strange reconciliation, not with genuine remorse, but with calculation in her eyes. "We can work through this," she said, stroking my arm. "Marriage is complicated. People make mistakes." It was only when I mentioned speaking to a divorce attorney that her demeanor changed completely. Suddenly, she was cataloging all the ways I had failed, as a husband, working too much, not appreciating her enough, being boring in bed. Then came the threats about taking half my business, the house alimony payments that would bleed me dry. In the following days, I discovered evidence of other affairs: text messages with clients' husbands, hotel receipts for weekends. She claimed to be at yoga retreats, explicit photos sent to men I knew through business connections. The scope of her deception was breathtaking. The initial divorce proceedings revealed more betrayal. Amanda had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts into a private one for months. When I confronted her, she claimed she was protecting herself because she suspected I was hiding assets. My attorney immediately filed for an emergency hearing when we discovered she had withdrawn $50,000 the day after I found her with Jack. Amanda's response was to launch a smear campaign among our friends. Suddenly, there were whispers about me being controlling, verbally abusive, even physically threatening. Friends I had known for years began avoiding me, believing her elaborate lies. Only those who had witnessed our relationship up close stood by me, including my brother Paul and his wife, who had seen Amanda's manipulative behavior firsthand. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects to rebuild what the divorce was costing me. Therapy became my weekly anchor, helping me process the betrayal and recognize that Amanda's behavior reflected her character, not my worth. Still, the pain of discovering your entire marriage was essentially a facade cuts deep. We were legally separated for 6 months, while the divorce proceedings dragged on. Amanda delayed at every opportunity, firing 2 lawyers when they could not meet her unreasonable demands. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual connections that she was dating multiple men, including a doctor and a real estate developer, often seeing different ones on the same day. As her financial situation deteriorated without access to my income, her demands became more desperate. Her lawyer requested temporary spousal support, claiming she had sacrificed her career to support mine, despite her personal training business continuing throughout our marriage. The judge denied the request, based on evidence of her hidden accounts and spending habits. After months of legal wrangling, we finally received a date for our final divorce hearing. I felt a mixture of dread and relief, knowing that soon this chapter would be closed regardless of the financial cost. What I did not anticipate was the dramatic turn the proceedings would take. The morning of our final divorce hearing, I woke at 5 after another restless night. I showered, dressed in my best suit, and reviewed the documentation my lawyer had prepared. We had a strong case for a fair division of assets, with clear evidence of Amanda's financial misconduct and infidelity. My attorney, Michael Brooks, met me at the courthouse steps at 8:30. "Just stick to the facts," he reminded me. "No matter what happens in there, keep your emotions in check. The judge needs to see you as reasonable and credible." We were setting up at our table when the courtroom doors opened and Amanda made her entrance. I heard Michael swear under his breath before I turned to look. Amanda was visibly pregnant, her hand resting protectively on a belly that suggested she was well into her 3rd trimester. She wore a modest navy maternity dress, her hair pulled back in a simple style that emphasized her condition. My mind raced, calculating months since our separation. We had been living apart for over 6 months, with no physical contact since the day I discovered her affair. Whatever game she was playing, the child could not possibly be mine. Amanda caught my eye and smiled slightly, the same satisfied expression I had seen when she successfully manipulated situations in the past. She whispered something to her attorney, a sharp-featured woman named Valerie Simmons, who nodded and began arranging papers with renewed confidence. The judge, an older woman named Helen Rogers, entered and called the court to order. She reviewed the case file briefly before addressing us. "This appears to be a straightforward division of assets following an 8-year marriage with documented infidelity and financial misconduct. Is there anything not covered in these filings that needs to be addressed before we proceed?" Valerie Simmons rose immediately. "Your Honor, my client's circumstances have changed significantly since our initial filings. As you can see, Mrs. Wilson is expecting a child, which fundamentally alters the financial considerations of this dissolution." The implication hung in the air. Without saying it directly, she was suggesting I was the father, and therefore responsible for child support in addition to whatever settlement we reached. Michael responded swiftly. "Your Honor, my client and Mrs. Wilson have been separated with no physical contact for more than 6 months. The timeline makes it impossible for Mr. Wilson to be the father of this child." "That is not accurate," Valerie countered. "My client will testify that she and Mr. Wilson attempted reconciliation during their separation, resulting in this pregnancy." I felt my blood pressure rising, but remembered Michael's advice to stay calm. This was a blatant lie, an obvious attempt to extract more money or possibly delay the proceedings further. Judge Rogers looked skeptical. She adjusted her glasses and looked directly at Amanda. "Miss Wilson, what is your due date exactly?" Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "November 15th, Your Honor." The judge consulted the calendar on her desk, then reviewed our case file again. "So, conception would have occurred in mid-February, approximately." "Yes, Your Honor." Amanda replied, her voice steady, but her fingers fidgeting with her purse strap. "According to these court records, you and Mr. Wilson have had a court-ordered separation since October 10th of last year with no cohabitation. That is nearly 4 months before conception." The judge's voice had taken on an edge. "Who is the father of your child, Miss Wilson?" The courtroom went silent. Amanda glanced at her lawyer, who gave a slight nod. "Chester is the father," Amanda insisted. We met privately to discuss reconciliation in February. One thing led to another. Michael was already on his feet. "Your Honor, this is demonstrably false." My client was in Phoenix overseeing a project for the entire month of February. "We have flight records, hotel receipts, and multiple witnesses who can verify his whereabouts. We request an immediate paternity test." Judge Rogers turned her stern gaze to Amanda. "Mrs. Wilson, making false statements under oath is perjury, a criminal offense. I will ask you one more time. Is Mr. Wilson the father of your child?" Amanda's facade finally cracked. Her eyes darted around the room as if seeking escape. "I believed there was a possibility," she stammered. "We were still legally married, and financially speaking, the child is a product of our marriage, regardless of biology." "That is not how the law works," Judge Rogers said sharply. "This appears to be a deliberate attempt to mislead the court for financial gain." She called for a 30-minute recess to review the evidence of financial misconduct in light of this new credibility issue. In the hallway outside, Amanda approached me, tears streaming down her face. "It is Jack's baby," she admitted quietly, "but he wants nothing to do with it. I am scared, Chester. I do not know how I am going to manage." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You should have thought of that before lying to a judge," I replied, walking away to join Michael at the water fountain. When court resumed, Judge Rogers did not attempt to hide her displeasure. In light of Mrs. Wilson's demonstrated dishonesty and the substantial evidence of financial misconduct, this court finds the following division of assets to be fair and equitable. What followed was a ruling that favored me on nearly every count, including full ownership of my business and minimal property division beyond what was legally required. As we left the courtroom, Amanda's lawyer was already lecturing her about the consequences of lying under oath. I walked out into the sunshine, feeling like an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The marriage was officially over, and Amanda's final manipulation had backfired spectacularly. The days following the divorce hearing were surprisingly peaceful. I felt liberated despite the financial hit of legal fees and the required asset division. My business remained intact, and I could finally focus on rebuilding, without the constant drain of Amanda's spending and drama. She called repeatedly in the first week, alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations. I blocked her number and instructed my staff to do the same. Through mutual friends, I learned that Jack had not only denied paternity but had moved to Seattle with his new girlfriend. Amanda's calculated pregnancy had left her alone exactly when she needed support most. I threw myself into revitalizing my construction company. The scandal had cost us a few clients, but my reputation for quality work helped secure new contracts. I implemented strict financial controls and created a company culture built on transparency, the opposite of what my marriage had become. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received formal notification that Amanda had given birth to a baby girl. The birth certificate listed the father as unknown, though rumors suggested she was still pursuing Jack for child support. I felt sympathy for the innocent child born into such a situation, but remained grateful for the judge's wisdom in seeing through Amanda's deception. Almost a year after our divorce, a letter arrived at my office. I recognized Amanda's handwriting immediately and almost threw it away unopened. Curiosity won out. Inside was a 3-page handwritten apology, detailing her manipulations throughout our marriage, her affairs, and her pregnancy scheme. She claimed therapy and motherhood had forced her to confront her behavior and take responsibility for her choices. "I do not expect forgiveness," she wrote, "but I needed to acknowledge the pain I caused. You deserved better than what I gave you." She ended by assuring me she would never contact me again and wished me happiness. Whether her remorse was genuine or another manipulation, the letter provided unexpected closure. My healing journey was slow but steady. I joined a support group for divorced men, where I found community with others who understood the unique pain of betrayal and the challenge of rebuilding trust. Through their stories, I began to recognize the red flags I had ignored in my marriage. Amanda's constant dissatisfaction, her secrecy about finances, her need for admiration from other men, Work became not just a distraction but a passion again. I scaled back to focus on quality over quantity, taking only projects that aligned with my values. The business became profitable, in a sustainable way, without the constant pressure to earn more to fund an unsustainable lifestyle. Exactly 1 year after my divorce was finalized, I met Elaine Harper, an architect collaborating on a community center project. She was brilliant, straightforward, and carried her own divorce scars from a husband who had hidden gambling debts. Our shared experiences made us cautious but also deeply appreciative of honesty. We took things slowly, establishing trust through consistent actions rather than grand promises. I was transparent about my finances from the beginning, and she respected my boundaries around commitment. When I finally asked her to dinner after 3 months of professional collaboration, it felt like the beginning of something authentic. Through mutual connections, I occasionally heard updates about Amanda. Her personal training business had folded, and she was working at a department store cosmetics counter. The luxurious lifestyle she had craved remained elusive, and her reputation in our social circle was permanently damaged. The few friends who stayed loyal to her were those who had never known the full truth. The most significant change in me was learning to recognize manipulation and set boundaries against it. Therapy helped me understand how my desire to be the provider, the fixer, had made me vulnerable to Amanda's tactics. I learned that generosity without accountability creates neither gratitude nor respect. 2 years after that fateful divorce hearing, I found myself genuinely happy. Elaine and I had moved in together, combining our lives with careful consideration and mutual respect. My business had recovered completely with a reputation for integrity that attracted the right kind of clients. The pain of betrayal had transformed into wisdom that guided my choices. I no longer harbor anger toward Amanda. Forgiveness came not for her benefit but for my peace. Her deception, especially that final desperate attempt in the courtroom, ultimately freed me from a relationship that would have continued draining my spirit and resources. Sometimes the most painful experiences become the most valuable teachers. Have you ever caught someone in a lie that completely backfired on them? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story helped you feel less alone in dealing with manipulation, please like and subscribe. And do not forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear that justice does sometimes prevail. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most important life lessons.